What's going on, y'all? Thanks for checking in the Khaliis Take. You know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button. Also hit the notification bell just so you can get the newest and the bonus content first. But hey, man, let's just go ahead and jump right in. I've got to say, man, the Clippers have been the most unpredictable team that I've probably ever seen in my life, but definitely the most unpredictable team this year. They'll have you scratching your head. They'll have you pulling your hair out. And then one day they'll have you smiling. Looking at this team, understanding what they're going through with injuries and COVID and everything like that, and which other teams are going through the same thing. But this team just definitely, when you watch them, you just don't understand what you're looking at times. Because let's just take this for instance. As of this year, 2022, they have had three or four comebacks that no team in the NBA is even probably capable of doing without their superstars. Let that sink in. They've had 3 or 4 comebacks this year against playoff teams. The Nets, the Nuggets, the 76ers, and I think the Wizards. They've had 4 comebacks this year that I haven't seen a team do ever in my life. And they're doing it all in one season. Matter of fact, all in 1 year. We're in 2022. We're only a month in the year 2022, and they've done some heroics without their 2 superstars that I don't think I've ever seen a team do. This team is very, very unpredictable. The crazy thing is they have a lot of resiliency. They fight really well when their backs are against the wall, but they just don't do it consistently. And I don't know if it's because of energy. I don't know if it's because of lack of energy. I don't know if it's because of fatigue. Who knows what the situation may be, but this team is very unpredictable. They will go out one night and beat a team like the Brooklyn Nets, in which they did, I think, when the ball dropped earlier this year. I think Kevin Durant and James Harden had over 30 points, and they came back in that game, and they still beat them without Kawhi and PG. But then they'll go the next night and lose against a team like the Knicks or the Pelicans or something like that, which makes them very, very unpredictable. And it makes it very, very condescending to think about their situation, because you look at this team and you feel like, well, they can be a really good team even without Kawhi and PG. They can't be a contender for a championship, but they could be a playoff team without Kawhi and PG. Looking at some of the comeback wins they've had and some of the impressive wins they had this season alone, they can definitely be a playoff team without them, whether a 7th or 8th seed or something like that. They can do that. It just goes to show how much depth this team has. And I've said before, a lot of teams in the West would be looking over their shoulder if Kawhi and PG was playing right now. I don't care the Warriors. I don't care about the Suns. I don't care about the Utah. I damn sure don't care about the Utah Jazz, since they were the number 1 team last year and everybody started making it seem like the Jazz are really, really this good team. I just don't believe in them. And I don't think most of America has never believed them in any way. Never believed in them at all, because I haven't met one person that's a Utah Jazz fan in my life. But of course, maybe if I met people from Utah or lived there, I would know them, but I don't. So, and then you look at other teams like the Nuggets. Now the Nuggets will be a good team when they get Jamal Murray back. I will say that, because Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, and Jokic is definitely a handful. The Clippers know that from a couple seasons ago, but still, I don't think no team in the West is scaring them. Of course, you got to add the Lakers in there, but at the same time, right now, you can only account for what the Lakers are doing right now, which is not much. But I'm just saying, if Kawhi and PG were healthy, I think a lot of teams would be looking over their shoulder in the West. Because when you see players like Luke Kennard play the way he's playing, being the closer that he's become for the Clippers and knocking down big shots, they still got Terrence Mann. This guy that comes off the bench, Amir Coffey, was probably the last guy on the roster, but he comes out, and the last couple weeks, he's looked like one of their star players, averaging like 20 plus points a game. And I think the comeback win they had against Orlando, he actually had like 29 points. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, they get contribution from everywhere. And then they got good young players like Jay Scrubb, who actually came back here lately, got a few minutes in there, showed a little bit of his talent. And Brandon Boston is a very good young player, young and up and coming player that they have as well. A lot of people are impressed by. And they do have, some good high energy type players who do the dirty work, intangibles, like Isaiah Hartenstein definitely was a really, really good piece or pickup for the Clippers. I mean, they just have depth all over. And I will say this, when Eric Bledsoe decides to actually play well, he's another weapon potentially that they have when he is playing well. Only problem with him is inconsistency. Well, that just seems to be the life of the Clippers. That's why I said they're the most unpredictable team. They have a lot of talent. They have a lot of depth, but they're very unpredictable. And I just think that if they could find a way to get healthy, I don't think that no team in the West scares them. And I don't think no team in the West should be favored over them if they play them in a 7-game series. I don't think no team should be favored over the Clippers in a 7-game series, not in the Western Conference. Or hell, not in the NBA, based upon what I'm seeing, them coming back from 35-point leads and then came back from 20-plus point leads like 3 other times this year alone. It just shows how good this team can be. And I say this with conviction. To me, if Kawhi and PG come back, they definitely have a chance to win a championship, but this is the year for them to win it, because just like last year, this year is wide open for them, and they have an opportunity to go out there and win if they can get healthy, because if they're healthy, I don't really see a team that can beat them. I mean, even though Zubac, if you want to say one of their weak areas is probably Zubac in the center position, well, Zubac has showed some games this year that he can actually come up pretty big. He had a 32-point game. He's had several double games over 15 points and like 10 plus rebounds. And then, to back him up, they still got a veteran in Serge Ibaka who can knock down threes and space the floor. And Isaiah Hartenstein is definitely a high motor, high energy type guy that comes off the bench and gives him a spark every time he's on the floor. So, I mean, the center position is really not as weak as a lot of people may think. And when you look at this team overall, they got some interchangeable pieces, but they also got some pieces that, can do some things. The reason why I think they're still one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, because they got players like Justice Winslow. He's not a scorer by any means, but he plays hard on defense and he can disrupt things. He can cause turnovers. He can make plays on the defensive end at times. And, he can run the floor really well and slash to the basket really well. So can Eric Bledsoe, now, and then they still got Terrence Mann who could do those things. And then Luke Kennard is coming into his own the way he is. So the role players are solid. I mean, they really are. And then, like I said, they're 2 young guys that they like a lot in Brandon Boston, of course, and Jay Scrubb. They definitely like him a lot too, and definitely like the talent that he can bring. And like I said, with Amir Coffey playing the way he's playing, he's another young guy that stepped up really big and become a threat for them so far, at least anyway. With the minutes he's gotten, he's definitely seized the moment. This team is really, really deep. And when you look at the NBA, you can't say any other team in the NBA is deeper than the Clippers. If you look at the roster from top to bottom, there's no team in the NBA deeper than them. Only problem with the Clippers is health. And that's a big problem, because health holds a lot of teams and a lot of players back from winning championships. And it's been notable, and it's been a notable thing throughout years and years of sports. And the Clippers just have to get out their own way. And if they find a way to do that, they're a championship caliber team. It's no doubt about it. So, I mean, we have to understand what's before us in this team. And we have to understand that this team is good enough to win it. And a lot of people need to stop overlooking this team, but I definitely understand why they're not paying attention to them, because without Kawhi and PG, you can't win a championship. It's no way possible. I definitely understand that. But I definitely think that even when Kawhi and PG were there last year, a lot of people were still knocking this team down. A lot of people were still, looking down upon this team like they're not good enough to win, just because of what happened in the bubble, a place where they didn't feel comfortable. 99% of the players didn't want to play. And LeBron, he obliged it because he know he's old, and the 4 months off really benefited him more than a lot of other players, because he needed the rest. Because I personally think, if LeBron would have played, that whole season and the bubble never happened, I don't think the Lakers would have went that far, because I think LeBron would have gave out of gas the same way he did last year against the Phoenix Suns in the playoffs, where Anthony Davis did get hurt, but he couldn't carry the torch as he used to. And I think that kind of proved to some people, well, the bubble was more favorable for an older player like him to get rally his team. And then on top of that, with the Kobe Bryant situation happening, God rest Kobe Bryant's soul, by the way. You know what I'm saying? It's been 2 years since yesterday. Definitely a heartbreaking loss. We miss Kobe. Definitely one of the best players, if not the GOAT, if not the best player I've ever seen play. Shout out to him always, and shout out to the family. But they were definitely rallied behind that. They were emotionally, behind that situation. And I felt like that gave them the charisma and energy to win that championship. I mean, built around Kobe's loss and the energy and the positivity and the 4 months off that LeBron had. But we can go many conversations with that. But my point is this: the Clippers have been looked down upon with Kawhi or without Kawhi and PG. It doesn't matter. But this team definitely needs some respect put on them, because for what they have been able to do so far, even though they've been inconsistent, they still find themselves in the 8th seed. I mean, honestly, with the players that they have on the floor, if you look at their roster on paper, you would think they're like a 10th or 11th seed if you're most NBA fans. You wouldn't think they would even be in the conversation of being a playoff team and a threat. I mean, look at some of the teams they've beaten this year. They beat the Brooklyn Nets, comeback win. They beat the Nuggets with the reigning MVP in Jokic, comeback win. They beat the Philadelphia 76ers, comeback win against Joel Embiid, who is probably the most dominant player in the NBA right now, at least the way he's looked the last week or so. And they embarrassed Doc Rivers, which made him look like, trash, which I always thought he was as a coach anyway. And they had the biggest comeback of the year against the Washington Wizards, which is an embarrassing loss by them. The organization should actually change cities or change their name for a loss like that. But even still, the Clippers found a way to come through. And like I said, if you look at some of the wins they had this year, it's been very impressive. And on top of that, for a side note, they did beat the Lakers the one time they did play the Lakers this year. And hey, definitely Luke Kennard came up big in that game. So, I mean, and all the other players came up big in that game. They scrapped, they fought, they were resilient, and they came up big and they got a victory against their same town rivalry team in the Lakers. And that's definitely big for their confidence. And plus the other wins they've gotten this year, of course. But like I said, they're very unpredictable, because there's times where they win games like that and you say, man, they can go on a 4 or 5 game winning streak, and then they lose to a team like the Pelicans, or they lose to, a team like the Thunder, which they're actually not too bad, but I mean, that's a team that they definitely could beat. And this is what I'm saying. So, I mean, it's very, very unpredictable with them, but you still got to give them credit because they're still hanging in there. And right now, they're only on a 2-game win streak, which is not much at all. But I mean, for them, for the roster that they have and depleted as a team as they are, that's big for them. And hopefully, like I said, they can build on that going forward. Hopefully they can, because like I said, they're going to need to if they want to make the playoffs. And the playoffs is right in front of them. It's in the palm of their hands. They just have to find ways to make games ugly, and it's not going to be sexy, it's not going to be pretty how they win, but they're going to have to just scrap games out the way they've been doing. And that fighter's mentality they have, I hope that flame doesn't blow out anytime soon, because right now it's lit and it's definitely working for them. But I would like to see the Clippers not be down 20-35 points against some of these teams. I would like to see the Clippers jump out to a 10-20 point lead themselves, because if they're capable of coming back from 35 and 25 points down, that tells you that they're capable of actually building a 25-35 point lead themselves if they got the scoring and firepower to come back from a deficit like that. So you definitely hope that they find ways to do that, and they find ways to uplift themselves offensively. And, hey, defensively this year, they've been pretty good. They've been pretty solid defensively this year, for the most part. So keep doing what they're doing in that area. But if they can get more efficiency in the offensive area, I think that definitely bode well for them. Ty Lue's definitely been pulling the right strings out of these players. So you got to give Ty Lue a lot of credit, and you got to give the Clippers organization some credit for what they've been doing. But I mean, hey, you hope this season don't tank, or you hope they don't punt this season away. But it's all about Kawhi and PG, man. It really is. Those two players right there, they have to come back. They have to find a way. And bare minimum, I say at least one of them have to come back. So hopefully, I don't know about Paul George's situation. It's just more and more up in the air day by day. And Kawhi seems more and more seemingly close to his destination of coming back. So I personally think if they had Kawhi Leonard, though, if he came back, even without Paul George, with what they're getting out of some of these other players, I'm not saying they can make up for what Paul George does, but they can definitely contribute in ways where it can help the Clippers be more of a winning team than than what some people even think. Because even if Kawhi Leonard had just Luke Kennard and those players, you wouldn't think that they can go far in the playoffs. But I mean, with Kawhi's wisdom and Kawhi's talent, if he's 100% healthy, playing the way he usually does, they can make some noise in the West, and they can make some teams kind of scarce of what they can do in a 7-game series. I wouldn't count them out, because think about it. They went to the conference finals last year without Kawhi Leonard, even though Kawhi Leonard did play, like, I'd say most of the playoffs. He played the first round in like 2 or 3 games of the Utah series, and then they lost to the Suns. But even still, I think they can get close to that far, even if Kawhi Leonard did come back. Now, it would be a long shot, because you're asking Kawhi to come back and play at the level he did with no rhythm, and that can definitely, alter a lot of things. So Kawhi would have to get his rhythm first and be in motion how he usually is before we really can make that decision, or make that determining factor, or whether how far he can carry the team possibly. But if he's able to get in rhythm, at least, I think they still have a decent chance, and I would like to see him on the floor with the way this team is playing right now. I would like to see Kawhi Leonard on the floor with this team the way they are now, if Paul George doesn't come back, because I still like their chances. And I do believe if Paul George, doesn't get that surgery, and if they let him rest a little while longer, maybe going in close to the playoffs, maybe he can make a return. Who knows? Maybe second, third round, something like that. The Clippers can make it that far. I mean, you never know. So, I mean, sky's the limit for the Clippers. But, I mean, I definitely think this is the year they need to win it, or they need to try to go after it even more so than last year, because it's wide open in the West. And a lot of teams in the West look good, but not a lot of them look impressive. You know what I'm saying? And even the Warriors with Klay Thompson and, Steph, I think they're beatable, because, I don't know how Klay Thompson is going to really, I don't know if he's going to really turn back into the player he was. I mean, I feel like he can, but who knows? And then Draymond Green's injury. And like I said, the Warriors, I'm not sure. Their big man, James Wiseman, who knows about him? It's a lot up in the air with that team too. And the Suns are good, but I mean, hey, I just don't trust Chris Paul in big games, big moments, because I've never really seen him come through like that, even though he did come through last year against the Clippers. But that was a Clippers team without Kawhi Leonard, and it still took them 6 games to do it, whereas they should have beat the Clippers in 5 games, because they were up 2-0 in the series. So, I mean, it is what it is, man. But like I said, the Clippers definitely have an opportunity. Hopefully they seize that if Kawhi and PG comes back, and I just hope that they keep it going so far. I mean, I've been impressed by what I've seen. Some of these comebacks that they've had, I've been very impressed, and hopefully they can keep it going, man. I definitely would like to see them at least make the playoffs and give themselves an opportunity to win, and maybe give themselves an opportunity to get one of their superstars back, so they can, possibly make a run, or, better their chances of at least, being an adequate team in the playoffs to possibly winning a playoff series and seeing where they can go from there. But hey, that's my take on the situation. You leave any comments in the comment section as always, and hey, Cali out.